Imagine this, you walk into a party. It's loud. People are laughing, music's playing, conversations crisscross the room like fireworks. Some folks thrive in this chaos, jumping from group to group, energized by every interaction. Others find a quiet corner, pull out their phone, or just hope no one notices them. Which one are you? You might already have an answer. I'm an introvert. Or I'm an extrovert. But what if you're not exactly either? What if this entire way of thinking, this black or white, introvert or extrovert label, isn't just oversimplified but wrong? Carl Jung, the brilliant mind behind modern analytical psychology, argued something radical. That we are not either/or. That deep inside us both energies exist, the one that looks outward to the world and others, and the one that looks inward to thoughts, reflections and solitude. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like you didn't quite fit the mold? Like you could be outgoing one moment and withdrawn the next? Like sometimes people call you shy when really, you just didn't want to speak? Or maybe you're the life of the party, until suddenly, you vanish for days to recharge? You're not alone. And no, you're not broken. You're human. Let's start by debunking what these terms actually mean. Because the modern world has twisted them. Being an introvert doesn't mean you're antisocial. And being an extrovert doesn't mean you're loud or shallow. According to Jung, it's about energy, where we focus it, where we draw it from. Introverts recharge by going inward. They process deeply. They reflect. Their inner world is rich. Extroverts recharge by going outward. They come alive in interaction, in movement, in stimulus. But here's the kicker, Jung didn't believe anyone was purely one or the other. That's right. No one. Think about that friend who's super social, but suddenly disappears for a week after every big trip. Or the quiet person who gives electrifying speeches on stage. These contradictions? They're not flaws. They're clues. Clues that personality is not a fixed identity. It's a dynamic spectrum. And here's something even more important, as we grow we change. That kid who was painfully shy might become a charismatic leader. That class clown might discover the joy of silence and solitude. Jung believed that maturity is not about locking into a type, it's about integration. Embracing all parts of the self. So before we move on to explore this middle ground personality, yes, it has a name, ask yourself. Am I living by someone else's definition of who I am? Have I used introvert or extrovert as a shield? What would it look like to step into the full complexity of myself? Because what Jung was really trying to tell us is that our personality is not a prison. It's a path. One that leads, if we're willing, to wholeness. Stay with us. The next part reveals the hidden power of those who live in between, the ambiverts. You might just realize, that's you. So, if we're not fully introvert or fully extrovert, what are we?
Welcome to the world of the ambivert.
You might have never heard the term before, or maybe you brushed it off as just a fancy word for confused. But ambiverts are not confused, they're balanced. And if you've ever felt like you don't neatly belong in either category, there's a good chance you're one of them. Carl Jung believed that the healthiest individuals weren't those who lived at the extremes, but those who integrated both forces within them, the outward-facing and the inward-turning. He believed that wholeness comes from balance, not allegiance. And that's what ambiverts do. They listen like introverts but speak up like extroverts. They can think deeply, sit with emotion and solitude, and then step into a crowd and lead with charisma. They adapt.
Let's make it real.
You might be an ambivert if you enjoy deep one-on-one conversations, but you can also thrive in a group setting. Too much solitude makes you restless, but too much socializing drains you. People often tell you, you're so outgoing. And then others say, you're really quiet. It's not contradiction.
It's context.
And this adaptability?
It's a superpower.
In fact, studies from the Wharton School of Business have shown that ambiverts are often the most successful salespeople, not because they're pushy, but because they can listen, adapt, and connect based on the moment. They don't overpower people like strong extroverts might. But they also don't hold back like strong introverts might.
T walks the line.
This ability to shift is what Jung would call individuation, the process of becoming your full self, not by choosing one identity, but by synthesizing opposites. In our culture, we're obsessed with being clear and defined. We love categories. He's an ENTJ.
She's a textbook introvert.
But these labels can become cages. They make us perform an identity instead of exploring it.
Have you ever caught yourself thinking?
I'm an introvert, so I can't go to that party. I'm an extrovert, so I should want to go out tonight. But what if You just paused and asked, what do I need right now? Because that's the real question. Not what am I, but what do I need? Jung warned that if we identify too strongly with one side of ourselves, we repress the other. And that repressed side doesn't vanish, it grows in the dark. It becomes what Jung called the shadow. So maybe the real path forward isn't to pick a label and wear it like armor. Maybe it's to realize that you're complex.
You're fluid.
You're allowed to change depending on the season, the moment, or your energy.
The introvert in you is not the enemy of the extrovert.
They're partners.
They balance each other.
And in this world, where we're constantly overstimulated, bombarded by opinions, pulled into comparison, it's not the loudest or the quietest who thrive. It's the ones who know when to pause and when to push. When to speak and when to listen. When to step back and when to step in. That's the gift of the ambivert. So if you've never felt like you belonged in either box, maybe that's because you weren't meant to. In the next section, we'll explore how to use this awareness practically, how to honor your own needs, break free from personality labels, and grow into your full dynamic self. Because this isn't just about psychology.
It's about power.
The power of self-awareness, of freedom, and of choosing your response instead of reacting from habit. Let's pause here and ask something important. Why are we so obsessed with putting ourselves in a box?
Introvert. Extrovert. INFJ. ENTP. Empath. Alpha. Sigma.
Social butterfly.
Lone wolf.
These labels feel like answers, but often they're just better-looking cages. Here's the truth Jung understood. Most people don't want self-knowledge.
They want certainty.
They want something to cling to that explains why they feel different, why they struggle, why they don't fit. And personality types offer that illusion of clarity. But Jung never intended his theory of introversion and extroversion to become a rigid identity system.
In fact, he warned against it.
To Jung, the introvert and the extrovert were not permanent types. They were tendencies, ways of orienting consciousness. And those tendencies could evolve over time, shift with context, or become distorted when over-identified with.
For example,
an introvert who always avoids social settings may not be honoring their nature. They may be avoiding discomfort. An extrovert who talks non-stop may not be confident. They may be afraid of silence. So when we label ourselves too tightly, we start to act out the label. I'm an introvert, so I can't speak in meetings. I'm an extrovert, so I always need to be the center of attention.
These are not insights.
They're excuses. And worse, they limit your growth. Imagine if instead of asking, am I an introvert or an extrovert? You asked, in this moment, what part of me needs to be expressed? Maybe today, you need solitude. But tomorrow, you might need to dance with strangers at a wedding. Maybe this week, you recharge in silence. But next week, you seek laughter at a dinner table. Carl Jung called this balance the integration of the self. The self isn't just who you are when you're alone. It's the totality of all your parts. Not just the ego, not just the personality, but the full spectrum of your potential. To unlock that, we have to stop clinging to the ego's need to be something and start becoming who we are.
That means
letting go of the script you've been handed by personality tests. Releasing the pressure to be consistent at the cost of being real. Embracing the contradictions inside you as natural, not flaws.
because you are not a brand. You are a person.
And human beings are fluid, emotional, seasonal, paradoxical, and evolving. Here's a practical test. When you say, I'm an introvert, are you using it to describe your energy, or to justify your fears? When you say, I'm an extrovert, are you naming your joy, or escaping your discomfort? The difference matters. Because self-awareness is not just about knowing your patterns, it's about not being ruled by them. Jung believed that wholeness was not perfection, it was integration. He said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And to do that, you must explore both sides of your nature, the silence and the spotlight.
The stillness and the sound.
Because no test, no label, no YouTube video can define your soul.
You have to live it, choose it, shape it.
And that starts with one radical idea.
You are not a type. You are a self.
A living, breathing, changing, mysterious self. One that can learn to express what it needs, not based on a label, but on what is true now. In the final part, we'll explore how to practically apply this awareness, how to tune into your real needs, stop performing for the label, and create a life that aligns with your inner rhythm, not anyone else's expectations. So now that we've deconstructed the illusion of personality labels, the real question becomes, how do you live in a way that reflects your truth, not your type? Carl Jung believed that the goal of psychological development was not to become more of what we already are, but to become whole, to integrate the parts of ourselves that have been ignored, rejected, or underused. And this journey, he called it individuation, is not a destination.
It's a path.
One paved with awareness, choice, and deep inner listening. Here are 4 practical ways to begin that journey today.
Erster, observe yourself without judgment.
Before you act, before you speak, before you withdraw or rush into connection, pause.
Ask,
Am I doing this because it's authentic, or because it fits the story I've told about myself? Is this action nourishing my energy or protecting my ego? This kind of self-inquiry doesn't require hours of meditation. It just requires honesty.
next time you skip a party, don't just say, I'm an introvert.
Ask, am I truly tired, or am I afraid I won't be accepted?
Next time you dominate a room, don't just say, I'm an extrovert.
Ask, am I expressing joy, or am I avoiding silence because I'm scared of what I might feel in it? That single pause could change everything. 2. Experiment with the opposite mode. One of the most powerful practices in Jungian psychology is deliberate experimentation with your lesser-used traits. If you're someone who's always been the quiet one, try speaking first in a meeting, not to impress but to grow. If you're the life of the party, try spending one weekend completely alone, with no distractions. Just your thoughts.
You don't do this to abandon who you are.
You do it to expand who you can be. Jung said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." To accept yourself fully, you must touch the parts you've denied. 3. Redefine success on your terms. A lot of confusion about introversion and extroversion isn't about energy. It's about expectation. Society tells us to be outgoing, bold, assertive, loud. But Jung said that introversion is not a flaw, it's a valid mode of perceiving the world. It's inward-focused, contemplative, and deeply intuitive. The problem is, we've equated social visibility with success. But your success might look like creating in solitude, connecting deeply with a few instead of many, listening instead of speaking. Or if you've been hiding behind shyness, maybe your success looks like finally taking up space and using your voice. There's no single way to live truthfully. But there is one way to live falsely. By chasing someone else's version of fulfillment. 4. Allow your identity to be a process, not a prison. You will not be the same person in 5 years. Your needs will evolve. Your strengths will shift. Your energy will move through seasons. So allow yourself to grow. Don't become the brand of introvert or extrovert, so tightly that you forget how to breathe. You are not a box to be checked. You are a symphony to be played. Carl Jung didn't want you to pick a side. He wanted you to find the center. And at the center, you'll find the real you, not the performance, not the persona, but the soul beneath it all. So let's end with this. If you've been confused about who you are, that's not a failure.
It's the beginning. Confusion is das Beis-Bett wen the false self falling apart, and the real self emerging.
And as you move forward, here's a mantra to carry with you.
I don't have to be consistent.
I have to be true. Whether you speak or stay silent, connect or withdraw, act or wait, the most important thing is that it's coming from within you.
Not a label.
Not a role.
Not a fear. But you. Let go of the box.
Step into your wholeness. And watch how much lighter life becomes.